Hey, so I just finished a game called Gamedec, and the easiest way to describe it is that it's Blade Runner, but for like video games or in a like meta world with different video games. You are a detective or a game deck as it's called, and you solve different cases. People disappeared, um, stuff like that. You gather clues inside different worlds that are based on different games like Facebook games or time wasting games. Like if you're thinking like Farmwell, you're not too far off. The game looks absolutely amazing. It's you view it top down. You can't rotate the camera, but it looks really great. I was very impressed, taken back from the beginning, and the general vibe and style had me on board very much. I was like, wow, this looks great. This feels great. I'm down with it. There's a very neat system where you can like gather clues and then you have to draw your conclusion. And I'm not sure you can really draw any wrong conclusion, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Um, so there's some good systems to gather. When you gather clues, you sort of put them in order and and draw your own conclusion on what happened. Some cases, or pretty much all the cases, in order to get evidence and clues and figure out what has happened, what's going on, you need to play the games a little, and this is where I kind of tired out a bit from the game, um, because it can be funny on the surface where you see like, oh, look at these people harvesting pumpkins for all eternity, but then in order to get to know some of the people in that game, to get clues, to get to ask them questions, you then yourself need to harvest a certain amount of pumpkins. And even though there's a lot of variety, they're very different, the games that you visit. This mechanic, I feel like it's in all of the games and it overstays its welcome. It drags the pacing down. I mean, you have a mystery. You need to figure out what's going on. You have a case to solve, and you have a story. Like as a gamer, you're enjoying this game. I was enjoying this game. There was a story. I would like to progress, but I had to do these pumpkin things and other stuff like that, and that took out a lot of the fun for me. The difficulty, the easiest difficulty that I played on, said that I wouldn't be able to miss any clues, and that I would be able to ask repeat questions, so that I would have kind of like a perfect first playthrough. And I like this way of doing difficulty, and that's definitely what I'm looking for. Like for this sort of game, I'm sitting back, pajamas, I have snacks, it's all good, it's all cozy, maybe even a glass of wine. And so I just want a nice, smooth experience, like laid back, invested in puzzle solving, and especially, crimes, missing people, murder cases. It's amazing. But the difficulty lied to me. Uh, I lost some clues. I missed some evidence. I didn't have the full picture when I drew my conclusion. So I don't know if I can draw a wrong conclusion, but I wasn't as hand-holded as I was, and it's kind of like going into playing as a smart person versus being an actual smart person. Um, and some of the things that I had to do, I couldn't figure out, or I did them wrong, and I had no way of going back and getting that information. I also had some choices, there's actually quite a bit of consequence for your choices. Like I had one where I put my hand in a trash can to see if there was anything in there. I don't think there was, but the game told me that my sleeve was wet. And then I tried to talk to a guy, and he said, "No, your sleeve smells. I will not talk to you." I don't know if I could have gotten his information by another way. Maybe I did. I don't know, but I had in my little notebook, when I had to all my data points to draw a conclusion, I had missing data points, and I couldn't find anywhere else to get them, and that was a bit annoying. I would have hoped that wouldn't have been the case when I choose that difficulty. And that was part of the unfortunate thing that I started really impressed with the game, the look and the setup, the introduction. I was like, yes, I can do this. This looks amazing. This feels amazing. I'm engaged. I can get submerged into this level. But then, and this is a me thing. I'm fully aware of that. But there's a lot of reading, and there's definitely too much reading for what I was looking for. There's very little voice acting. Like maybe they say hello or introduce themselves, the characters you talk to, but they rarely say what you're supposed to read. So you have to read all the information. So I ended up skipping through it, not paying attention, because I just don't get that engaged in reading. I mean, not in a game where it's like visual, but then I have to read. Like I can get engaged in books. I mean, I review books on this channel as well, even though they are not, what do you call it, storybooks. Anyways, that resulted the little voice acting and the communication is also you're talking to static images. So there isn't really much acting. You don't see their faces. That also makes it difficult to engage with the character, feel empathy, because it's just text on a 2D picture. If this had been like say Mass Effect, if this had been 3D, if you had been down on character level instead of looking up, I think, and then fully voice acted, wow, this would have knocked it out of the park as an experience. Could have worked, but voice acting would have done a lot. I think that would have been enough for me to really get into it, but there is little voice acting prepared for a lot of reading, and that had the consequence, unfortunately, that I lost part of the story because I started skipping to it. So by the end, I was checked out, unfortunately. I can fully recommend Gamedec if you can read in a video game. That's a bit weird of saying it, but if you don't mind reading, the text, both the dialogue and also like labels, signs, and explanations, no problem. You will have good time with Gamedec. And the story, like I picked it up later because it becomes obvious. The story was quite great, kept me guessing, not only because I didn't read what's going on, but and they do emphasize that your choices have consequences. You can't predict them, so might as well just go with it. And of course, that you can have a lot of these consequences when you have writing, not dialogue, because it costs money and takes time and all that. So Gamedec unfortunately started really great and then fell flat at the end for me. But if you can do a lot of reading, definitely not a problem. Easy to recommend. I'm fearing that this might be the same with Disco Elysium. It's a game that I've heard a lot of good things about. I'm certain I'll play it at some point, but there's also a lot of reading. We'll have to find out. So, Gamedec. If you could we call it a visual novel? You do walk around the levels and they do look really, really great. So, if you are better, more tolerant to reading than I am, I have no problem recommending it. That's all for me. I hope you found it useful.